important thing is that it's within 3 months. So within 3 months, with all variables, this client is going to do something, right?
Well, you
So
mentioned, I love that you brought up the word contract because with the commission structure changing fairly soon, that's kind of what everybody's freaking out about. But you mentioned contract, and call me a perpetual optimist, but I see it as a good thing for good agents because let's face it, the agents that haven't been able to get buyer agreements before, you should have always been doing that. I've been talking about that for 10 years. So this isn't anything new to people that know how to get a buyer agreement. But essentially, we were talking about those long term nurture, cold, warm, hot. What's the next stage after hot? You've got to get your agreement signed. That's how you get to closing. So the goal in any of those previous stages should always be to get that contract signed. If you're putting in this work and this effort, you better have that agreement so you can get compensated for your time. Good agents should have the proper training and the proper tools on how to get that agreement signed because that's really what your goal is from those other stages.
absolutely. And if somebody's really the next stage is when they're under contract. And obviously, there's a lot of different things that happen when they're under contract, whether it's a listing or a buyer. Yeah, definitely get the contract as soon as possible and delay the date for it actually going on the market.
Right.
But the idea is anybody who's in the hot is not under contract. And based on the information you have, they're going to sign a contract within the next 3 months. And that's really the way to think about it. Now, that can change two ways. Like I talked about, there's a number of reasons they could delay, but they're going to make commitment, as soon as possible, and that's 1 to 3 months potentially. Or if you find out that they're delayed because of financing or job transfer or what have you, then that can move into the other stages. But ideally, anything in that hot pipeline, they're ready to make a commitment soon.
I would even go as far as to say when somebody gets labeled in the hot stage or hot pipeline, an agent's goal is to get them out of that stage as fast as possible. Get them out because again, there's certain things. Your goal, every touch, everything that you're interacting with this lead about is to get them out of hot. And what I
And,
mean by
and
that
into a
is
contract, sure.
and
Yeah.
yeah, into a contract. And if you can't get them into a contract, well then you need to put them in, then they're not hot. Because if they're not going to close within the next 0 to 3 months, whatever that situation, whatever those scenarios that you mentioned were, they're not hot. And if they were, then they'd be signing a contract with you. Even if it is going to need 4 or 5, 6 months, they would sign that contract with you. Especially if they're going to need, 4 to 6 months to whatever it is that they got to do. You damn sure better have that contract in place because who knows what can happen in 6 months? That is a lifetime. That is so long. That is so anything could happen in 6 months. You could sit there and think they are your best friend. You can have the best conversation. Oh, this is a done deal. If you don't have a contract signed, anything could happen. Somebody could walk right into their house, offer them cash and buy it, and you are totally out of the loop. But if you have an agreement and contract in place, that's not going to happen.
The potential new regulations where, it has been maybe a little bit more lax on the buyer contracts
Yep, yep.
because, but again, professionals were getting a contract before they would show them houses. And the idea really for an agent, that is the trigger point is getting that contract. And you're right, whether it's a listing that, hey, maybe they have to do work, but you've got the agreement that you're representing them, then
That's right.
obviously doing that, the sooner the better, and the same on the buyer. So it's kind of leveled the playing field where focus on that contract. And we don't know when they're, we can't necessarily control when they're going to close. We do have
That's right.
influence on that, but the closing is one thing. But hey, let's focus on when we get them into a contract. That's more within our control as an agent.
100%. So that's what I mean by when somebody's hot, that means, hey, they've indicated this. That's their indicator. But as an agent, your goal is to get them out of hot, whether that be moving, okay, they're not hot and they are warm or they're cold, or, hey, I've got that agreement, especially now with buyers. Of course, with listing, we've always known that, but even more so now with the new structure and the way buyers agents are going to get paid. You need to double, triple down on your training. Goal is get them closed, right? Now they're closed. Now you can kick off a closing campaign, some kind of drip or automation for closed clients to make sure that they're still being re-engaged. You've got a label or a segment or a tag that labels them as a past client, and ideally 6 months, a year, however longer, when ideally that person stays with you and transacts again, and the cycle starts over.